The call no parent wants to get.
Citing there was a code red lockdown, there was gunshots nearby.
A student shot 3 times at Seminole High School.
What happens when evil teens finally face their insane sentences? In this video, watch as their chilling reactions unfold, from stunned silence to explosive outbursts. Get ready. These are the wildest courtroom moments you won't want to miss.
The teenager who was accused of shooting a classmate 3 times was in court this afternoon to face upgraded adult charges. Daravius Smith has been in a juvenile detention center.
In January 2022, a shocking incident occurred at Seminole High School in Florida, leaving the community in disbelief. Sanford police arrested a 16-year-old student named Daravius Smith for allegedly shooting an 18-year-old student inside the school around noon. The charges against Daravius include 1 count of open attempted homicide, 1 count of possession of a firearm on campus, and 1 count of firing a weapon and disturbing the peace while interfering with school functions.
McIntyre is a senior who played cornerback on the Seminole High School football team. His family says he has been planning on playing in college next year and has several offers.
The victim of the shooting, Javon McIntyre, was a cornerback for his high school football team who dreamed of playing the sport in college. However, after the shooting, Javon's hopes were put into question, as he worried his injuries might hinder his chances of pursuing his dreams. Javon underwent surgery on his wrist after being shot 3 times, but fortunately, he survived and was in stable condition.
Deputies say he shot 18-year-old Javon McIntyre 3 times on campus at Seminole High School last month. After Smith told investigators the two had words in the bathroom.
Initially, the detectives investigating the shooting believed the motive behind the incident was linked to a girl. However, as they looked deeper into the case, they discovered that it was actually over a deceased relative. This revelation shocked the community and left many questioning the motive behind the senseless act of violence. According to the chief of police, there was no indication the shooting was gang-related. However, this only adds more mystery to the case. Before the tragic incident, Daravius Smith and Javon McIntyre were friends. However, the 2 teens had a confrontation 1 week before the shooting, which left everyone scratching their heads. Daravius, while speaking with detectives, claimed that Javon was taunting him between classes. However, he denied any threats or attempts to initiate a fight with Javon. On the day of the shooting, Daravius claimed that he hid in a bathroom to avoid Javon. He alleged that Javon was waiting for him outside the bathroom, ready to engage in a fight. In his statement to the detectives, Daravius claimed he was not scared, but because he was inexperienced in fights, he decided to shoot Javon instead. Shockingly, Daravius admitted to firing multiple shots at Javon before the gun jammed. He claimed that he fled the scene afterward, disposed of the weapon, and hid until he was eventually caught. 1 month after Daravius Smith was charged with attempted murder, his case was transferred from the juvenile justice system to the adult circuit court. Daravius opted not to go to trial, instead entering a no-contest plea to the charges against him. In July 2024, Daravius faced the consequences of his actions as Judge John Galuzzo handed down a 2 15-year prison sentence to be served concurrently. Additionally, he was ordered to serve 5 years on probation.
By probable cause for attempted first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm reclassified as a light felony. Your client will be held at no bond as to that count.
While on probation, Daravius was ordered to wear a GPS and is prohibited from possessing firearms. The judge made another important decision, banning Daravius from having contact with his victims, their families, and even Seminole High School property. Recognizing the potential mental health issues at play, the judge ordered Daravius to undergo mental health evaluations. In addition to mental health evaluations, the judge also required Daravius to enroll in anger management courses and life skills programs. Javon McIntyre filed a lawsuit against the Seminole County school system in November 2022. In his lawsuit, he alleged that the school did not do enough to protect him. According to Javon's complaint, several school officials heard Daravius threaten him 1 week before he was shot. The complaint further alleges that as he was running and screaming for help after being shot, 1 school staff member ran past him in the opposite direction and didn't help. Javon, by 2022, was a student at Tusculum University in Tennessee. Due to the devastating consequences of the shooting, Javon sought justice and demanded compensation. He believed his injuries warranted a fair settlement and is seeking at least $100,000. Our next case takes a shocking turn with Curtis and Catherine Jones, siblings who became the youngest teens ever charged with first-degree murder in the U.S.
Jones was only 13 and her brother Curtis 12 when they shot and killed Nicole Spites in 1999.
Curtis and Catherine Jones were siblings who found themselves at the center of a shocking murder case. Living in Port St. John, Florida, with their father, Curtis Jones Sr., the siblings were part of a tight-knit family. However, things took a turn when Curtis Sr. began a relationship with Nicole Spites, a 29-year-old woman with 2 daughters.
The brother and sister, the youngest at the time to be charged as adults with murder in the country, pled out and were sentenced to 18 years in prison.
For a few months in late 1998 and early 1999, the Jones family, Nicole and her daughters, had lived together. However, on January 6, 1999, a horrific event unfolded that would change their lives forever. As Nicole sat working on a 500-piece puzzle at the dining room table, Catherine approached her, holding her father's 9mm handgun. Without hesitation, Catherine opened fire, shooting Nicole in the torso. In the chaos that followed, Catherine dropped the gun, leaving it within reach of her brother Curtis. Curtis seized the opportunity and opened fire, continuing to shoot Nicole until the gun was empty. This deadly assault left Nicole dead on the kitchen floor. The detectives alleged Curtis and Catherine, 13 and 12 years old, covered up their tracks after shooting Nicole, staged the scene as a robbery, and ran into the woods, where they spent one night before they were found and arrested. At just 12 and 13 years old, Curtis and Catherine became the youngest people charged with first-degree murder in the United States. However, it quickly became evident that these two couldn't fully grasp the gravity of their actions. During the court proceedings, Curtis made a shocking request. He asked his attorney if he could bring his Nintendo to prison.
I can't say how many more times he fired the gun, but I know after maybe the last 2 bullets.
According to the Brevard County Sheriff's agent Todd Goodyear, the motive behind Nicole's murder was that the siblings were jealous of their father's girlfriend. This jealousy turned into deadly consequences, with both Curtis and Catherine pleading guilty to second-degree murder charges. It was believed that justice had been served at the time, but a shocking revelation would soon come to light.
I actually took the fingerprints off the gun and wiped it down, and I told my brother that he got hysterical. He had an emotional breakdown because, once again, this is reality now. This isn't some idea that's in our head anymore. This is reality.
In 2009, Catherine spoke to Florida Today and admitted that there was more to Nicole's shooting than meets the eye. According to Catherine, a family member who had been staying in their home sexually abused her and her brother Curtis. However, Catherine said their claims were not taken seriously when meeting with her father, Curtis Sr., and Nicole. Jessica and Inez, Nicole's daughters, were left to pick up the pieces after. Curtis and Catherine killed their mother. For years after the murder, Jessica and Inez perpetuated the lie that their mother was alive and well in Florida. The girls desperately clung to this fantasy. They continued to deceive their friends, pretending that Nicole was on an extended vacation. Finally, after years of suppressing the truth, Jessica mustered the courage to share it with her closest friends. The weight of that lie had become too heavy to bear, and she knew she had to seek help. In a moment of bravery, she revealed that her mother, Nicole, had been brutally murdered by a 12 and 13-year-old. As time went on, Jessica and Inez couldn't help but miss their mother at some of the most pivotal moments of their lives. Curtis Jones, now a youth minister, was released in July 2015, while his sister, Catherine Jones, followed in November of the same year. While adjusting to life outside of prison, Catherine worked at Sonic and supported herself independently. Driven by her desire to make a difference in the lives of others, Catherine made a bold and ambitious move to Washington, D.C., where she met with a Democratic senator to discuss changing how juvenile offenders are sentenced. Having spent half of her life incarcerated, Catherine's everyday experiences were like embarking on a new adventure. With a release date that coincided with Thanksgiving, Catherine's spirit soared as she envisioned spending the holiday with her brother Curtis. In an interview while in prison, Catherine expressed her remorse for the taking of Nicole's life and her deep regret for her actions. However, she confessed that she found solace in the solitude and introspection of prison life. When Nicole's daughters, Jessica and Inez, learned of Curtis and Catherine's impending release from prison in 2015, they expressed their pain to Florida Today. However, they also revealed their capacity for forgiveness. According to that article, Curtis and Catherine had never apologized to Jessica or Inez and appeared to have no remorse for their actions. After witnessing the tragic story of Curtis and Catherine Jones, two siblings who made a haunting pact at such a young age, we moved to the case of Jordan Roach.
Stand trial as an adult. On Thursday, Roche pleaded guilty to killing Cargill and was sentenced to 10 years in prison.
In 2017, Kaytlynn Cargill, a 14-year-old from Arlington, Texas, decided to walk with her dog. Kaytlynn left the apartment complex where she resided. Her family expected her to return home soon. However, their hopes began to fade as the hours turned into days.
14-year-old Kaytlynn Cargill, who disappeared in June only to be discovered dead in a landfill, may have had a deal to manufacture and sell a drug. An arrest warrant affidavit for Jordan Roach.
On the second day after Kaytlynn's disappearance, her body was found in an Arlington landfill. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community, and the search for justice began. It wasn't until August 2017 that the police finally revealed Kaytlyn's cause of death. Tragically, it was determined that she had been the victim of homicidal violence. This news only intensified the search for answers. In September 2017, police made a shocking announcement. They had arrested 16-year-old Jordan Roach, an acquaintance of Kaytlyn's. Jordan was charged with murder and transported to the Tarrant County Juvenile Detention Facility in Fort Worth. According to Jordan's arrest records, the police believed Kaytlynn was killed because of a drug deal gone bad. They also alleged that the murder weapon used was a hammer.
Police say they found a claw hammer along with Cargill's blood inside of an apartment.
Kaytlyn's murder sparked outrage among the residents of Bedford, where the young girl once lived. They are not only angered by the brutality of the crime, but also by the way the police and the media treated Kaytlynn. One of the most concerning aspects of this case is that the Bedford police never issued an Amber Alert when Kaytlynn disappeared in June 2017. This failure to act concerned many community members, as they believed that the situation warranted an immediate response. However, the Bedford police stated that Kaytlyn's information was entered into a local and national database, but they had no information to indicate she had been abducted, and therefore could not issue an Amber Alert. Fast forward to April 2022, and there is finally some closure in the case.
Is committed to remembering her daughter with a memorial garden in Hearst and a motorcycle ride each June in Kaytlyn's honor.
I live because she can't, so we do.
Jordan Roach, the 17-year-old perpetrator, was sentenced to 10 years in prison after he pleaded guilty. Since Jordan had been behind bars since his arrest, it meant that he would receive credit for time served. Trisha West, Kaytlyn's mother, expressed her outrage and disbelief at her daughter's murder during Jordan's sentencing hearing. She firmly believed her daughter would have become a valuable member of society, but Jordan's actions robbed Kaytlynn of that opportunity.
The only thing I can say is that you somehow have to find peace.
Trisha addressed Jordan directly, telling him that he had stolen Kaytlyn's life and her dreams. She expressed her deep regret at not being able to witness her daughter's bright future unfold. Through tears, she made it clear that Jordan had not only taken Kaytlyn's life, but also robbed her of the chance to make a positive impact on the lives of others. Continuing the theme of parental anguish, Beau Cargill, Kaytlyn's father, wrote a powerful statement that was read aloud during the sentencing hearing. In his letter, Beau expressed the daily torment he endured, haunted by what his daughter had to go through in her final moments. He expressed hope that Jordan would be haunted by his actions every day of his prison sentence. Next, we move to the tragic story of Austin Myers and Justin Back, a case that starts with a simple robbery plan but escalates into a horrifying murder.
The sentence of death shall be imposed upon Austin Gregory Myers on the charge of aggravated murder.
Myers once again showed no emotion.
On the 28th of January 2014, Justin Back, an 18-year-old, was murdered in Waynesville, Warren County, Ohio, by two young men who had broken into his family home to steal a safe from the house. Those two men were Timothy Mosley and 19-year-old Austin Myers, whose evil plans ruined not just the life of an innocent boy and his family, but also theirs. Back was childhood friends with Myers when they were in middle school, as they both attended the same high school. He only graduated high school in 2013 and had plans to join the U.S. Navy. However, his dream would be cut short by a man he used to call his friend. On the day before Back's murder, Myers suggested a plan to make a quick buck to Mosley. The plan was to commit a robbery, and there were two potential targets, a substance dealer or Back's stepfather, Mark Cates. Myers was aware from his friendship with Back that Cates had a safe in his family home, where he potentially kept thousands of dollars and a gun. Mosley agreed to Myers' plan to rob Cates, and both young men drove to Back's home with intentions to break into the safe. However, on getting there, they realized that Back was home, so they made a new plan, this time to murder Back, cart away with the safe, and make it seem like Back had stolen the safe and run away from home. Myers bought a 3-foot-length steel cable and fastened it into a choke wire. The next morning, Myers and Mosley purchased various chemicals and rubber gloves in anticipation of having to dispose of a body. The pair drove to Back's home that afternoon with the intention of catching him off guard with the choke wire. Oblivious to their plans, Back let them into the house, and all three men had a short discussion before they finally had their moment to strike. Mosley saw a chance to attack Back from behind with the choke wire. However, Back fought back, and in the resulting scuffle involving all three men, Mosley had to stab Back from behind before Myers continued choking him. Mosley continued to stab Back around the chest area until he was finally dead. Myers and Mosley cleaned up the kitchen where they killed Back before wrapping his body in a blanket and throwing it into the trunk of Mosley's car. The young men eventually decided to hide the body in a field and poured on some of the chemicals to speed up decomposition of the body Myers and Mosley headed back to Back's place for one last attempt at the safe, but once they opened it, they found out there was only loose change and some random items inside. Cates came home to find his home trashed and quickly contacted the police. He also couldn't find Back despite finding his phone in the house, so he knew something was wrong. This was confirmed when the police described sighting a car which Myers had used to visit Back the previous day. Myers was eventually found, detained and questioned, but he denied having anything to do with Back's disappearance or the burglary. Mosley was also questioned and initially denied the allegations. However, at a second round of interrogations, Myers tried to implicate Mosley, who, upon hearing the false confession, decided to tell the truth. Back's body was eventually found, and it was determined that he had died of the multiple stab wounds, and both Myers and Mosley were accused of having a direct role in his murder. Myers was charged with 1 count of aggravated murder, 1 count of kidnapping, 1 count each of aggravated robbery and burglary, 1 count of theft, 1 count of tampering with evidence, 1 count of safecracking, and 1 count of abuse of a corpse.
That the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the aggravating circumstance outweighs the mitigating factor. Therefore, the sentence of death shall be imposed upon Austin Gregory Myers on the charge of aggravated murder.
Following his sentencing hearing, Myers showed no emotion but admitted to his horrible mistake and asked for his life to be spared. He also told the jury that killing him won't fix anything and that he wouldn't feel anything. Myers' sentencing caused some media uproar, as his accomplice, Mosley, received a life sentence without parole due to a plea bargain despite being the one who pulled out a knife and made the first stab. Myers, who is now 29, is currently imprisoned at the Chillicothe Correctional Institution, while Mosley is housed at the Ross Correctional Institution. Austin Myers' chilling crime revealed a heartless disregard for life, but the next case shifts to a story of violence in a place meant to feel safe.
That's why I put down the gun. I could have kept going. There was no officers there to stop me. I put it down because there was a girl there. She didn't run from me. She just, I shot through the door. I could have shot her, but I don't know.
Before embarking on his deadly mission, Sky Bouche meticulously planned every detail. Sky placed his shotgun into his guitar case. He then took 2 Phenibut, a psychoactive substance banned in the United States but available online. Additionally, Sky placed a tactical vest in his backpack and approached Forest High School. When Sky arrived at Forest High School, he saw a teenage girl walking by. However, instead of pulling the trigger, he hesitated. This unexpected moment of clarity may have prevented a more devastating outcome. Instead of targeting innocent lives, Sky fired his weapon through a classroom door, striking a student in the ankle. Minutes after firing the shotgun, Sky was arrested by a school resource officer. As the police approached, Sky had his hands up and surrendered, claiming he had a mental illness. Sky's motive behind the chilling act was to inflict fear in students, according to his statements. He claimed that he never intended to kill anyone, but rather wanted to terrorize the school population.
Watch your back. Did you intend on shooting anybody else?
Why today?
According to Sky, he had nightmares that prompted him to plan and perform the shooting. These disturbing dreams fueled his desire to take action and carry out a violent act. Sky admitted that he wanted to go to jail. He believed that being incarcerated would prevent him from committing another shooting in the future, fearing that he could be a danger to himself or others.
I put it in a guitar case, and I also had a tactical vest filled with shotgun slug rounds.
Sky admitted that he purchased the gun 1 week after the Marjorie Stoneman High School shooting in Parkland. This private cash sale did not require a background check. He was charged with terrorism, aggravated assault with a firearm, carrying a concealed weapon, and armed trespass on school property.
What do you have to say to people who are out there who are scared because of what you did today?
I don't know if it's going to make it any better. I could say sorry all I want, but it doesn't matter now.
Faced with the possibility of a lengthy prison sentence, Sky decided to plead no contest, resulting in a 30-year sentence with an additional 30 years of probation. During the sentencing hearing, Sky's grandmother, Linda Costello, was allowed to make a statement on his behalf. Speaking via Zoom, she described her grandson as a nice person and expressed her remorse for his actions. According to Linda, Sky had expressed a desire to make a positive impact in the community by sharing his story and urging other teenagers to stay away from illegal substances purchased over the internet.
It's a probable cause to hold you on the charges that have been made. I'm here to see about getting you some representation by an attorney.
Sky Bouche's violent actions left a community shaken. But the next case takes us to a disturbing act committed by someone closer to home.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if there's a proper way to make this apology because there are not even words to describe the guilt and remorse that I feel each day for what I've done.
This is Rachel Schoaf, and she's charged with the murder of Skylar Neese when she was only 16 years old. On July 6, 2012, 16-year-old Skylar Neese disappeared from her home in Star City, West Virginia, and was not found until January 16, 2013. Unfortunately, only Neese's body was found with the help of one of the murderers, Rachel Schoaf. The other person who was charged with the murder of Neese was Sheila Eddy. Schoaf and Eddy were friends with Neese until their friendship turned sour. According to Schoaf's confessions, the motive for murdering Neese was that they didn't like her and didn't want to be friends with her anymore. The surveillance of the apartment where Neese lived showed that Neese left her home at 12:30 a.m. through her window and entered into a sedan with Schoaf and Eddy. That was the last time anyone besides Schoaf and Eddy saw Neese alive. Because of this, Neese was first treated as a runaway until the police discovered that the sedan on the surveillance belonged to Eddy.
Rachel and Sheila drove around Star City and in the area, preparing themselves. They had concealed knives on their bodies that had been wrapped in towels by Sheila Eddy, and they took that shovel with them, and they arrived at Skylar's home and told her they were waiting for her. They were waiting to kill her.
When Schoaf and Eddy were questioned, they said they had hung out with Neese but dropped her off at home an hour after they left. At this point, Neese hadn't been found. However, on January 3, 2013, Rachel Schoaf suddenly admitted that she and Eddy had plotted to kill Neese. She also led them to where they left Neese. Skylar Neese had been stabbed to death almost 30 miles away from her home before Schoaf and Eddy dumped her body and covered it up with branches. It was not until years later that Schoaf finally gave the real motive behind the murder. According to her, she and Eddy had been in a romantic relationship and Neese caused tension between the couple, leading them to get rid of her.
I'm so sorry. I don't know if there's a proper way to make this apology because there are not even words to describe the guilt and remorse that I feel each day for what I've done.
Schoaf pled guilty to second-degree murder in exchange for cooperating with the authorities to find her victim. In court, she apologized for her actions and showed remorse for what she did. She was teary as she apologized to Neese's family and her parents. Eventually, it was time for sentencing.
It is the sentence of the court that you be imprisoned in the West Virginia State Penitentiary for a period of 30 years.
Rachel Schoaf was sentenced to 30 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 10 years. On May 9, 2023, Schoaf became eligible for parole and bid for it. She was denied parole and remains in custody. Schoaf and Eddy murdered Neese because of romantic tension. But how does it compare to murdering one's grandparents for no apparent reason, as Johnny Ryder and Cassandra Bjork did?
All right, Ms. Bjork, you are charged with 2 felony warrants for murder, 2 felony warrants for aggravated assault.
On April 8, 2017, Gwinnett County, Georgia experienced the shocking and brutal double murders of 63-year-old Randall and Wendy Bjork. The two were grandparents to 17-year-old Cassandra Bjork. They had gotten legal custody because she had issues with her parents. Despite the grandparents' best efforts to give Cassandra a good life, she became more troubled and would run away from home from time to time. She also brought home drugs and assaulted her grandmother on multiple occasions. She also had a boyfriend, 19-year-old Johnny Ryder, who she ran away with many times. The couple were described as volatile and toxic. Eventually, they committed worse crimes. On April 8th, the police responded to an assault case in a home in Lawrenceville, and the victims identified the attackers as Johnny Ryder and Cassandra Bjork. The two of them had attacked Johnny's sister and her boyfriend with a baseball bat and pepper spray before escaping. The car they used to escape belonged to Wendy and Randall, and this led the police to force their way into the home, as they expected the worst. To their horror, they found the bodies of Wendy and Randall. The two of them had been stabbed multiple times. Their autopsies showed that they had suffered blunt force to the head and various cuts around their throats. Everyone was horrified that something like that had happened in their community. Cassie and Johnny became the main suspects in the case, and a day after the Bjorgs were found, their granddaughter and her boyfriend were found after they barricaded themselves inside an apartment. They refused to come out, and by the time the SWAT team was able to get a visual, they found out that the teens were injured in the bathroom as they had tried to commit suicide. They failed at this attempt and were taken to the hospital. The two of them were charged with the murders of Cassie's grandparents. The interrogation revealed some shocking details that showed that the murder had been premeditated.
It seems that you're sorry you got caught, that you had people over after. You don't seem to be sorry that you killed your grandparents.
Cassie told the police that they had planned to murder her grandparents and keep their bodies from being discovered. According to Cassandra, she and Johnny waited until her grandparents were asleep before entering their bedroom, duct taping and attacking them. The murder weapons included a tire iron, a baseball bat, a hammer, and butcher knives. The two of them beat and stabbed the Bjorges to death. What's even more horrific is that after the murders, Cassandra sealed the windows and doors with caulk to keep the smell of the decomposing bodies from coming out.
And then we came back to the house.
When you guys left, where'd you guys go to?
We went over to like Kroger or Publix to go get something to eat. And then we went back to the house and we just kind of like chilled there.
Which one?
It was like on Old Peachtree.
Johnny and Cassie then ordered takeout and invited their friends to the house for a party. She also said that they smoked a lot of weed to mask the smell of the bodies as they were in the house for more than a week.
Things like just seemed different. They didn't look at me the same anymore. Like they didn't, I don't know, it's like the vibe that they have was like they didn't really know what to do. They didn't really know like how to be around me, I guess. They didn't really know how to talk to me.
The motive for the murder was shocking. Cassie said she killed her grandparents because they were too strict. She also said that her grandparents weren't the only intended victims. According to her, she and Johnny had planned to kill Johnny's family and Cassandra's mother. They both took a plea deal and didn't go to trial. Both of them were sentenced to 2 life sentences, each with the possibility of parole after 60 years. When the two heard their sentences, their reactions were different from each other. While Johnny apologized for what he did, Cassie was said to have been crying and refused to say anything even when she was given the chance to speak. The two would be eligible for parole in 2077. This case bears some semblance to the next one, but what do we say of an adult helping a minor to kill her father, like Ellen Friar?
I've seen all different kinds of people, and now see humanity from a new, compassionate perspective.
This is Ellen Friar, and she is being charged with a felony of conspiring to murder her father with the help of her 19-year-old boyfriend in 2017. On October 2, 2017, 50-year-old Ellen Friar and 15-year-old Ellen Friar were reported missing by Ellen's girlfriend after Ellen's younger daughters had found blood in their home. Ellen's 11-year-old daughter said she heard her father yelling in the morning but didn't come down until later. Then she recalled hearing the voice of Gavin McFarlane, Ellen's 19-year-old boyfriend. Ellen's body was found a week later in the woods. Based on the statements that Ellen's siblings had given, Ellen and her boyfriend were brought in for questioning, and the details that were revealed will shock you. According to Ellen, her father had told her that she could not be with Gavin because she was a minor and Gavin should know better. Before the unfortunate murder, Ellen had forbidden Gavin from seeing his daughter again and even threatened to kill him if he saw him near his daughter again. Ellen allegedly told the police that her father had been abusive and that she wanted to run away together with Gavin. According to her, Gavin had shown up with 22-year-old Russell Jones with a machete in hand. She told the police that 22-year-old Jones had attacked her father, and she ran away when she heard yelling. However, the story that Jones told the police was different. He told them that it was Gavin who had killed Ellen with a baseball bat. He said that he had walked into the house to see Ellen's body on the floor. Jones said that the only role that he played in the murder was helping Gavin to get rid of the body. He also said that Ellen had been the mastermind behind it all. Gavin McFarlane admitted to killing Ellen Friar, but there was a sickening twist.
I didn't want to kill him. I didn't want to kill him. She wanted him dead, but I didn't want to kill him. And I was like, I'm not going to kill him. She was all like, no, I don't want him around him.
Ellen had told Gavin that her father had abused her and that she was 2 weeks pregnant as a result. Except Ellen wasn't pregnant and Ellen Friar hadn't been abusive. He was just trying to protect his daughter from Gavin, who was eventually found guilty of third-degree rape because he had sexual relations with Friar as a minor. Gavin then revealed that Ellen had told him to kill her father. He said she told him this: "Go out in the front room, take him out and text me, and let me know when it's done." After this was revealed, Ellen pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Gavin McFarlane was found guilty of homicide and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. At her sentencing hearing, Ellen apologized for her actions and said that she was spending every day asking for forgiveness because she found God during the period that she was awaiting sentencing. She will be eligible for parole in 2041. Ellen Friar's tragic story of betrayal and loss is unsettling, but the next case reveals another act of violence with deep personal connections.
He intended to rob them when he and 3 others burst into the General Street apartment and shot the victims. He faces up to 6 consecutive life sentences.
One fateful night, 17-year-old Russell Burrell and 3 of his friends found themselves in an apartment where they hatched a plan to commit burglary. Their target was a man named Michael Martin, whom they believed to be an easy target with potential access to marijuana and money. Their decision to rob Michael would lead to a series of events that would change their lives forever.
Not guilty to all counts, Your Honor.
At approximately 10 p.m., Russell, armed with a fully loaded 9mm Glock pistol equipped with a 17-round magazine and a red laser sight beam, led his friends to Michael Martin's residence. When Michael answered the door, Russell and his companions aggressively commanded him into the living room. Russell's actions escalated rapidly as he and his friends entered the apartment. In the living room, Russell confronted Michael and another man, Damian Colin, who happened to be in the apartment. Without hesitation, Russell opened fire on both men, killing them instantly. As the bullets rained down, Shamika Barrows, who had been asleep on the couch, woke up to the terrifying scene unfolding before her. Realizing that Shamika was also in the apartment, Russell turned his sights on her. In a moment of sheer terror, Shamika watched in disbelief as Russell emptied the remaining clips of his 9mm into her. Shamika died instantly.
At 6, we're learning more about one of those victims' final moments. Eyewitness News reporter Sean Daly joins us now live outside Providence Superior Court.
It wasn't long after the triple murders that Russell and the 3 other men were caught. Russell Burrell was arrested and charged with 3 counts of murder, 3 counts of discharging a firearm during the commission of a crime of violence, and 1 count of conspiracy. Due to the severity of his crimes, Russell faced charges as an adult.
After the group agreed to commit the robbery with the gun, Russell Burrell armed himself with this black 9mm handgun.
After a lengthy legal process, Russell eventually pleaded guilty to all counts. The Attorney General, Peter Kilmartin, described Russell's actions as hard to imagine, considering his age and the absence of remorse. However, Peter Kilmartin emphasized that Russell's actions were not the result of misguided youth, but rather a cold-hearted killer. Russell sat stoic and silent as his sentence was read to him, showing little reaction. The judge described Russell as a cold-blooded, pitiless slayer. Continuing, the judge said, "You became a thing and a hoodlum, and now you're a murderer, a 3-time killer. You deserve absolutely no leniency from this court." After that, the judge dismissed Russell's appeal for leniency. At Russell's sentencing, Peter Kilmartin assured the community that Russell would no longer threaten society. Russell was sentenced to life in prison for each of the first-degree murder charges to be served consecutively. Additionally, he received a life sentence for each of the firearm charges to run concurrently. Unlike Russell Burrell's random shooting spree, the next case involves 2 young men whose violent actions forever changed the course of their lives.
And 2 teenagers accused of killing their Spanish teacher have pled guilty to first-degree murder. The Fairfield High School Spanish teacher was beaten to death in a park with a baseball bat.
When you find the mutilated corpse of an old lady who had been declared missing, your first thoughts would probably never be that the act had been committed by an adolescent. But this was the case for 66-year-old Spanish teacher Barbara Graber. Graber had been brutally murdered by not 1 but 2 adolescents, her 16-year-old student Willard Miller and his friend Jeremy Goodale. The reason why is shocking, and the reaction of the perpetrators in court will send shivers down your spine. Willard Miller had been failing his Spanish class at Fairfield High School in Iowa, and his poor grades threatened his chances of going on a study trip overseas, so he frequently argued with his teacher, Barbara Graber, over it. Miller got fed up with not having his way and devised an evil plan to take her out. His plan was to ambush her along a path where she often walked, and he would employ the services of his friend Jeremy Goodale to act as a lookout. On the 2nd of November 2021, Miller finally got the chance to act on his plan when Graber was walking along the planned path. He and Goodale were able to blindside her before repeatedly striking her with a baseball bat until she passed away. Graber obviously couldn't survive the attack, so both boys dragged her corpse into a nearby park and hid it beneath a tarp before fleeing the scene in her van, which they abandoned at the end of a rural road. Both Miller and Goodale soon became the focus of the murder investigation after Goodale sent incriminating messages to another school friend on the social media app Snapchat. Goodale's friend quickly showed the evidence to the police, who sought search warrants for the homes and mobile devices of both perpetrators of the murder. It was reported that Miller had also given hints about the murder to multiple classmates, telling one that Graber might disappear before the murder, and telling another that he had caught someone with a baseball bat the day after the murder. Graber's body was discovered the following day, covered by a tarp and wheelbarrow following tip-offs, which the police had received, including from the classmates of Miller and Goodale. Both boys were eventually arrested and brought in for questioning. Goodale and Miller initially denied their involvements, but eventually spilled the beans, although they both tried to make it seem that they had less involvement in the murder than the other. Ultimately, the evidence was stacked against them, and they were eventually charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit a forcible felony. On the 18th of April, 2023, both Goodale and Miller pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and were to be charged as adults due to the severity of the crime. Fortunately for both boys, Iowa does not permit juvenile crimes to be punished with a life sentence without the possibility of parole, but they knew they were going away for a long time. In July 2023, Miller was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 35 years before he's eligible for parole, which is 5 more years than was recommended by the prosecutors under a plea agreement. In November that year, Goodale, who had testified against Miller, received a recommended jail sentence of 25 years for his role in the murder. He and Miller were also ordered to pay $150,000 in restitution to Graber's family.
Got a nosebleed in court just as he's about to learn his fate. Jeremy Goodale pled guilty for his role in the crime that shocked America.
Numerous members of Graber's extended family showed up in court to express their pain and anger over the incident and the trauma it had caused the family ever since. They blamed Goodale for the murder as he chose not to prevent it, but some did offer words of encouragement. Goodale made a tearful apology to the family and friends of his victim, claiming that it was the worst decision of his life and that he wished he could go back in time to prevent it from ever happening.
2 years ago, I made the worst decision of my life, and I take full responsibility for what I did. And today, as a young man, I can begin to pay for that. I can never give back what I've taken.
He also apologized to the investigators for trying to mislead them during the interrogations, where he accused a gang of masked kids of perpetrating the murder and making him have to conceal the evidence. Miller, who is now 19, is currently in state custody at the Iowa Department of Corrections, while Goodale is being held at the Jefferson County Detention Center.
16-year-old Gabriel Parker is accused of shooting and killing 2 of his classmates and injuring 14 others in the shooting back in January.
In the morning of January 23, 2018, as students of the Marshall County High School in Kentucky got ready for the start of classes, 15-year-old student Gabe Parker opened fire in an open area at the school, murdering 2 students and injuring 14 others. After he was caught, he was made to face the consequences of his actions, and his behavior in the court shocked everyone. Gabriel Ross Parker was born on the 3rd of March 2002 and grew up in a broken home, which culminated in his mother getting remarried to his stepfather. Despite this, he showed no true signs at home of being capable of violence, but sometimes the propensity to commit murder stays well hidden until the act is perpetrated. On the 23rd of January 2018, students of Parker's high school were gathering in the commons prior to the start of class, blissfully unaware of what was about to befall them. The then 15-year-old sophomore, Parker had gone to school that day with a Ruger handgun in an intent to commit murder. Parker had reportedly gone to the school's band room earlier to check with his friends before the shooting, to make sure they were not in the area before returning to begin his attack. Just before 8 a.m., Parker brought out his handgun in the commons area and emotionlessly opened fire at the unsuspecting students. In the process of fleeing, multiple students were struck by bullets while others were trampled on in the ensuing stampede. 2 of the students, Bailey Nicole Holt and Preston Ryan Cope, who were both 15 years old, succumbed to their gunshot wounds while 18 others, including 5 girls and 13 boys. After the shooting, Parker discarded his weapon and ran to the weight room to hide with other students, who had been unaware he was the shooter and motioned for him to join them in hiding. However, one of the students who was hiding in the location recognized him as the shooter and alerted a teacher in the room about his identity. The teacher then called law enforcement. The Marshall County Sheriff from the Marshall County Sheriff's Department arrived a few minutes later and located Parker and arrested him shortly after. Following his arrest, Parker's bag was searched by police, and inside was a copy of the Communist Manifesto and a large Winchester sheath knife. Meanwhile, he had been brought in for interrogation to get to the root of his actions. During the interrogation, Parker expressed that he was an atheist and revealed his disillusioned views of life. Parker also indicated the shooting was an experiment to see how students and society would respond. Parker was eventually arraigned in Marshall County Circuit Court on the 16th of February, 2018 on charges of 2 counts of murder and 4 counts of first-degree assault, and he was to be tried as an adult due to the gravity of his crimes. Due to his age, Parker was ineligible for either the death penalty or life without parole, and according to Kentucky law, he also had to be eligible for parole after serving 25 years. He would plead guilty to the charges at a hearing on the 28th of April, 2020 in exchange for a plea bargain. As part of the plea offer, 6 of the assault charges were amended to assault in the second degree, Class C felonies. On the 12th of June 2020, an 18-year-old Gabe Parker was sentenced to 2 life terms plus 70 years, with the eligibility for parole after serving 20 years. After his sentence was read out, Parker showed no emotion and merely nodded to the announcement and let his attorney speak for him.
18-year-old inmate pled guilty to all 16 charges, including 2 counts of murder for the deaths of Bailey Holt and Preston Cope.
Some victims of the shooting recounted the horrific incident and the trauma it had caused them, while the parents of the victims were expectedly infuriated while recollecting their experience and agreed that Parker deserved the life sentence, even if some did admit that they were open to forgiving him in the future.
You're a sorry, low-life demon, piece of garbage, and I can't stand the sight of you, and you will never see the light of day again, and for that I'm grateful.
A civil lawsuit was filed against Parker's parents in 2019 by the parents of 4 of the victims of the shooting, including the 2 who sadly lost their lives. They were reportedly asked to be awarded $36.7 million in compensation, although that wouldn't be enough to bring back their kids. Parker, who is now 22 years old, is currently imprisoned at the North Point Training Center in Danville, Kentucky, and will be eligible for parole in June 2040 at the age of 38. These teens thought they could escape the consequences, but justice caught up with them in ways no one expected. The reactions were unforgettable, but the stories behind them are even more chilling. Keep watching to uncover more shocking moments. Our next video on screen will leave you speechless.